I am so pumped for this week's episode of the Maverick Makers podcast. We have Chef Joe Gatto. He is a celebrated chef and host of the hit TV show From Scratch on Pluto TV, where he shares his passion for scratch-made cooking. A private chef to A-list clients, including the Celtics and Red Sox players, Joe is also the author of the acclaimed cookbook, Seriously, From Scratch, and the host of an NPR cooking show with a loyal following. As the host of the podcast Chew on That, Joe brings together some of the biggest names in food, entertainment, and sports, featuring renowned chefs, creators, celebrities, and famous athletes. The podcast has become a must-listen for anyone who loves food and inspiring stories. Speaking of inspiring stories, you must listen to this episode of the Maverick Makers podcast. Joe has such a maverick journey. It is so inspiring. You are going to absolutely love what he has to say on this episode. So let's go. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Maverick Makers podcast. This week, we have Joe Gatto, chef and host. He is also a podcast host. So like I said, before we hit the record button, I may be on the hot seat today because it's always daunting to have a host on your show, but we'll see how I do. But welcome, Joe, to the show. I'm thrilled to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. This is going to be a great time. I'm really excited to be, like you said, on this side. It's great.
Wonderful. So let's do it.
Yeah, let's jump in.
Amazing. So first question, who are some of the mavericks that have inspired you in your journey?
I mean, the list is definitely long. You know, one of the most inspirational people for me was definitely my mom. She was just a do-it-all. I spent so much time in the kitchen with her. And it really influenced me on how I approach everything and just my approach not only to work, but to life. And for me, like outside of my family, Julia Child was a big one for me. When I used to cook with my mom on Saturdays, we'd just be watching like a old 13 black and white TV in the kitchen. And we just cook all on Saturdays. And it was always Julia and Jacques Pepin. And the more and more I learned about Julia, who I did get to meet a couple times, which was really neat. And how she had to really burst into the scene, and she had a lot more to deal with than just anyone else, from just coming in as a woman into the life of a chef is hard enough, but then trying to go into television as a woman and a chef. I mean, there's so many things that were against her doing that. And I love how she took the bull by the horns and just did it. And her approach was never had any pretense to it. It was always about inspiring people to get in the kitchen. You don't have to make all these complex dishes, but get in the kitchen and cook. And that's been an approach of mine with my shows, even my radio show on NPR where I cook live. It's always about getting people into the kitchen and just embracing the art of cooking as opposed to, make my pistachio pesto.
I love this story. And you're so right. And she was so right, because cooking, unless you're a trained chef, I think it's super intimidating.
It's very intimidating. And when I started off as a chef, I was teaching a lot, and I still teach a lot because it's a very important piece. And I've always said, every show I do, television, my Instagram shows, anything like that, it's about teaching. It's not I never do anything to show off. I try to rarely use ingredients that you wouldn't have in your pantry because it's a very intimidating process. And I have 3 kids, and I've taught them from a young age to cook, which I think is an important piece because it takes away the intimidation, but it also sets them up for success. It doesn't mean they have to go into the food arts or anything of that sort, but just knowing how to cook is a very important piece of growing up, being healthy, just all of those. And, my kids all love it now. So I know they take that with them, even when they're going to college and things like that. It will be something that not only will they appreciate more, but, their friends and everybody else will too.
Beautiful. No, it's definitely an essential life skill, and I think I have to get on that for my kids, so good motivation, so thank you, that's amazing.
Yeah, teaching the kids, I just think, especially in just with the how the world's laid out and how they're inundated with, fast food commercials and fast food in general, and it's always around and it's always pushed and it's always accessible. My kids have never had fast food, and that's not like a flex. It's just something that they don't want it at this point because they understand what food is. And if we want to change the health culture in this country that everyone talks about, it's not about now, hey, I'm going to make my kid a salad. It has nothing to do with that. It has them, they need to understand the food culture and what food is and how it's made so they can make choices. Because if you try to push, I mean, even as an adult, you try to push something on me, I'm going to resist it. It's not something I want. If you teach me about it, and then I understand it and I make my own choice, I'm going to embrace it.
Mm. Is there one food that they were very sort of hesitant about trying and now that they love?
Oh, there's been a time just recently, my youngest daughter, who's 6, Skylar, um, she was positive. She was positive that, she wouldn't like gumbo. And now that's her birthday meal. So she just, she thinks she doesn't like things, but and then another great element you can do as a parent is cook with them. When
Mm,
they participate and they have a piece of it and they have skin in the game, they're gonna try it.
mm.
But they try everything. My kids try everything. They don't like everything, but they try everything. Like my daughter Cassidy tried, we were down in Tulum and she tried, a roasted octopus dish. She
Mm,
didn't like it, but she tried it because she does like calamari and things like that. So she was willing to give it a shot. And I think that's another piece that's very important of them willing to try something and giving and once they feel that pressure where they don't have to eat it, they'll give it a shot and they'll find things, I mean, other parents think my kids are great eaters. I do too. I think they've got a really good palate and they've expanded it as they go. My oldest guy, who's 15, he can cook. And one of the things he asked me over the summer was to teach him a new dish every week. So, we were doing seared salmon, seared roasted salmon with asparagus. We're doing ribeyes, taught him how to make omelets. We made biscuits, like, and having that base knowledge when he comes home and he's hungry after basketball, there's always stuff in the fridge. But if he wants something, now it's not just reliant on me to make it. Which
mm,
I'd rather, but it's good. I
mm,
love making stuff for him, so
hot
it's
tip.
the best.
I love it. Let's talk about your Maverick journey. So how did you get into cooking? How did you become a private chef, an author, a cooking show host, a podcast host? I want to hear it all.
Yeah, it's serendipitous to say the least. I was a filmmaker,
Mm,
and that's what I did from my 20s. I lived in, Cali, and I worked in film. I wrote, I directed, I was in front of the camera. I did tons of independent film. That's how I met my wife. I was directing a feature and she came on as a producer because she had a master's in film. She was recommended by my cinematographer. We got married. We moved to LA and we were both working in film. That's what we did. And it was really fun being, you know, just married, living in LA, working in film. It was, it was really fun. And then my wife got pregnant with my son. And we had a long conversation that we are all, both our families are from here. My wife's originally from Ireland, but we're both from Boston. And we just didn't want to raise our son in Los Angeles in the film industry away from our family. We we just didn't think that was a great idea. I was itching for a change. I had been doing film for a long time, and I still love film like nobody's business. Still a huge piece of my life. I still wrote. I have a screenplay that I just finished that's with producers in LA. Like I still love it. But it's not the nicest industry. It's not something I want my kids exposed to. And I had always cooked. I cooked like to the extreme. And we just kind of just both decided to move back here and switch careers. My wife had wanted to really become an entrepreneur
Mm.
and try real estate and empowering women. And so we both made the decision to move back here and start. And I started teaching out of a place here in Boston, and I really enjoyed it. And then a woman who owned a private chef company came in, and she took my class, and she approached me after class and she said, your food is spectacular. I think, you should come work for me as a private chef. And I was like, what? What is it? What does that even mean? Like, what do you mean? So we talked and she said, you have to come and audition for me and cook for one of my clients and I'll show you how it works. And she had a company with a bunch of chefs and she had been in business for like 15 years. So I went and cooked, I don't know, like 15 dishes for her client in Cambridge. And everyone just loved it. And she was like, you're hired. And suddenly I was a private chef and I had clients and I got a good grasp of how the business worked after about 6 months. And 6 months after that, when I had tons of clients, I was just really getting it. I saw that it had a ceiling because there's only so many clients you can take. And when you're paying out to a company, you just, that's it. You've topped out. So I talked to her and I bought the company.
Wow.
And I rebranded and decided to go after like celebrities and athletes and things like that. And almost immediately I got Red Sox players. And then I had a Celtics player. And then I would cook for the Phoenix Suns when they came into town and the Houston Astros when they came into town. And it just kind of took off. And I got a book deal out of the attention I was getting. All of a sudden I was in magazines as like, this chef to the, like it was crazy. Like it just kind of took off. And in the middle of that, my wife and I were having a conversation and we're both big Emeril fans.
Hmm.
And she said, what I think you should do is I think you should do a television show. And I was like, what? Are you crazy? Like, I just got this business started, like a television show. And I was like, the only kind of show I'd ever want to do is where I make everything from scratch, like really from scratch, like hand forged knives, make my own charcoal, pull water out of the Atlantic, make salt. And the people I talked to gave me a lot of pushback. Everyone's like, you'd never get it in a half hour. It's going to be too niche. And the minute people started pushing back, I was like, oh, this is a good idea because everybody says it's not going to work. So for me, that's like the green light that no one's seen anything like that. So I should pursue that. So having the background in film, it didn't take me long to figure out how to do a pilot. So I got a bunch of my friends they own production houses. They shoot all different for all the biggies around here. And they came and I wrote a pilot and we shot it out and I did a BLT from scratch. So I made a 5-pound slab of bacon. I made mayo. I made beer bread. I made my own sriracha. Like I did this whole kit and caboodle. And then my wife asked me to do a private party for her best client, like a pasta party as a thank you. So I did. And afterwards, we were all just hanging out, talking after the class. And they asked me if I'd want to open a restaurant. And I said, no. And they said, well, we're private. We have we're entrepreneurs and we're looking to invest in something. We really are looking to group invest into like some kind of restaurant or something. And I was like, well, I do have a television show pilot that I just finished if you want to see that. And they were like, yeah. So I sent them the pilot. We had a couple meetings and they gave me the money for an entire season.
Wow.
So I sat down for 2 months and I wrote the entire season and I produced it and I started getting all the crew together and the editors and locations. And next thing you know, we spent a whole summer and we shot that out and it came out fantastic. I knew someone on the West Coast that had a connection to a distributor, which you need if you're making a television show. You need distribution before you have network. That's how it works. And they sent it over to their friend at a distribution house called Principal Media, and it went up the chain really fast, where it got to the vice president, Danny Bellardi, who is now a really great friend of mine. And he called me, and they acquired it. And once they acquired it, they got it to Pluto, and then Pluto loved it. And next thing I know, we were streaming back to back with Gordon Ramsay, and we were number one in the food category on Pluto. We were beating everybody. And then it just kind of blossomed from there. It found a real great niche audience, and it built a humongous base for me on social media and people that were really dedicated to the kind of humor and everything that I do. And that led to me doing shows from the house where, I do different cooking shows, and it just kind of really blossomed into a career in television where I doing a couple more shows coming up next year. We start in January and February, and it led to this media career. I got onto NPR as a guest a couple times, and now they gave me a monthly series 2 years ago. So I do that. And yeah, been asked to do another book. It just kind of now it just kind of I just kind of go with everything that happens because I love being on camera and teaching. It's just something I really enjoy. So it was a long, strange path, but it keeps changing and I keep embracing all the changes because I think that's a big part of what you have to understand is you might have something in your mind of how you want your career to go, but understanding that that's not going to be the way it works. Life just doesn't work that way. There's going to be a long grind in places. Are going to be parts where you just fail miserably and fall on your face. But that's a very important piece as you're creating as a entrepreneur, as a maverick. You need to fail to understand yourself better and to understand what you're actually wanting to do better, especially if people are saying no. You One thing you shouldn't do, in my opinion, is when people are saying no, you shouldn't take it personal. You should take a look at how you're presenting it
Mm.
because you might understand it in your head, but you're not translating it to other people well enough. And if you are, then you should look at what the product is because people aren't responding to it. So don't dig a hole. Take a look at that's what you really want to do. And if that's really what the product is, and that's where, because it's a great time to sit and learn more about what you're trying to accomplish. Because once you accomplish it, it's going to change again. It's never just one thing. You accomplish your dream. That means, if it's easy to get to your goals aren't big enough.
Hmm.
So you need all this failure and everything to really build up the foundation to truly achieve something that's next level. And that's what I keep trying to do.
I love your journey and your story and
Thanks.
pushing the limits and very inspiring and I think everyone should look at you as an example from again a filmmaker, which again it's all transferable skills, but you're like, okay, I'm going to be a chef. It's amazing and you did it and you're continuing to do it and like you said, what's next? And I think it's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Yeah. So what do you think the biggest lesson you have learned to date now that you've stepped into the public eye? So you went from behind the camera, but now you're that guy.
Yeah, there's been a lot of lessons I've learned as I went. One of the most important things as I've grown and gotten bigger is to embrace my family more and stay grounded on what's truly important because everything's great and success is great. But what really matters is family because if that goes away, my relationships with my kids and everything I built here is is what's most important and grounds me. So that's been a very important piece. Leaving your ego at the door
Mm.
is a very, very big piece of moving forward. And really, when you're working with people, listen, listen, and understand that their need is just as important as your need. So if you're going to work with them, it's synergy. It's not, I'm going to do this, you do this. You have to work together as a team. So listening is a very big piece as you build your brand, as you work with other, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs you're going to be working with, especially in what we do, right? There's not a lot of office work where things are, just delineated and you do this, I do this, I do this, and then we all go home. When we're doing what we do, it's like, okay, I'm going to do the press pack. Okay, well, you're good. I need this, and you need to do the swag bags, and I need to do this because I need to get this for my bio. So there's so many moving parts that communication, openness, and transparency and honesty will get you a lot further than just trying to accomplish everything yourself, especially transparency and honesty.
Mm. Great
Because
advice.
when people trust you and they know that they can trust you, they won't even, not just that they'll go further, but it creates a sense of where everyone can really embrace each other and move forward without worrying about anything. And that when you're like family and it really means something, I mean, that's how I built my teams. And I still work with people that I've worked for 25 years. And that means a lot to me because not only do I know they put out great work, but we have a really good time. And
Yep.
that's important to smile and enjoy it. And if I had one other piece, it would be don't concentrate so much on the goal. Enjoy the journey. Embrace the journey. The journey is the fun part. You'll get there, but don't miss out on all the fun of creating it all. And you get so hyper focused on what's going to happen that you really want to take in what's happening.
Absolutely. Fun. It's important to have fun every day. Otherwise, what's the point? So, yeah, absolutely. Who would you love to cook for?
Mm. That's a great question. Emeril,
Hmm. Mm, that
that
could
would,
happen.
yeah. I mean, I might be able to manifest that. Yeah. I
That's
think that would be
cool.
super fun. As not even just cook with him, like cook for him, cook with him.
Yeah.
That would be, for me, that would be one of like the pinnacles of something that I've always wanted because he was such a big inspiration for me.
Amazing. So, set the stage. So, what's happening? What are you cooking? What are you guys doing? What are you making?
I think I would just start busting out some of my go-tos of things that I love to make, like arancinis. I would definitely do some tacos for him. There's no doubt. I would do like birria tacos. I'd probably make like a pistachio pesto pasta. I would do some smash burgers. I would do just all fun comfort foods that would just be fun to eat and make together and just have a lot of laughs as we're doing them. And some of the things that are just fun to eat that just, you can make complex dishes, which I've done 1,000 times, but when you get in the kitchen and just make something fun and something that's just makes you feel good inside and it like wraps you with a big warm culinary hug, that I love that stuff.
Amazing. I want to seat at this table.
Okay, you're invited. You're invited.
Fantastic. I can't wait. Amazing. What's one food item that should be in everyone's pantry?
Oh, wow. I mean, flour. You need to have flour. There's just staples you need to have: flour, eggs, right? San Marzano tomatoes. Um, because from San Marzano tomatoes you can make a sauce, but you can also make chili. It's just so versatile to do so many bases. I would say if I had to die on a hill, I would San Marzano tomatoes are like an important piece of what I do all the time. I have so many cans of them in my pantry at all times.
Mm, amazing. I love it. So, like I mentioned, I could talk to you all day long. I have like a list of 100 questions and I could keep going, but let's move into the lightning round. Are
Sure,
you
sure.
ready? Okay, here we go. So, whatever comes top of mind, just
Okay,
let it out. Okay. Sweet or savory?
savory,
Okay. Coffee or tea?
coffee,
Ocean or mountains?
ocean,
Okay. Favorite place in the world?
Tulum, Mexico.
Hey,
That we go there and that's like just paradise.
it's pretty magical there. Absolutely. What is the strangest thing you have ever eaten and then cooked?
Strangest thing I've ever eaten. Uh, down in Tulum, I ate these chili roasted grasshoppers, and they're actually really good. They were like a crunchy snack. The weirdest thing I've ever cooked with is probably like I made a dish with beef tongue, which was I didn't like it. They loved it. My client loved it. I I'm a pass on beef tongue. And it's weird, like, it's the texture and the bouncing it's a very weird product, and some people absolutely love it, but that was because it looked like a tongue, it was just really weird.
I'm gonna pass on both of those.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. But the grasshoppers I did like.
okay, good. Maybe there's, I gotta try everything once.
Then when you got, like, a leg stuck in your tooth, yeah, you gotta get that out.
Okay, I will definitely pass on that. What's one thing everyone should know about you?
Um, the one thing you should know about me is that when the cards are on the table, I'm family first.
That's
I'm as loyal as it comes to my family.
beautiful. Amazing. You're granted one superpower. What is it?
Oh, um, what would be a fun superpower? Time travel.
Where are you going?
Probably, probably into the future just to check it out, what's happening everywhere. But going into the past and meeting some of like my favorite old time baseball players and stuff like that, like Ted Williams and Mickey Mantle and things like that.
Pretty cool. I like it. What's your legacy?
To be seen.
Okay.
But to be seen.
Okay.
It's constantly evolving
Amazing. How do you want to change the world?
through food,
Okay.
and through kids.
Hmm.
I want to help kids understand food and change it from there, one kid at a time.
Beautiful. My favorite and last question. What's next?
Boof, that's loaded. Um, what isn't next? What's next? Well, my podcast. I got a lot of big guests coming on next year. I have another big show that we start filming in February called Kitchen Combat that I'm doing with a bunch of big influencers on Instagram that will be playing. I think we're going to stream it on YouTube. And, I'm going to continue doing all my shows on IG. But yeah, big things just keep growing and whatever life throws at me. I'm sure it will be something with food and fun and lots of laughing. But yeah, always trying to create and always trying to do something new.
I love it. Thank you so much for this fun and inspiring chat. I could continue to talk to you forever and ever. You're amazing. Everyone should check out Chef Joe Gatto, his Instagram, his shows. Just give him a follow. He's fantastic. And thanks again. It was really a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me. This was really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
The Maverick Makers podcast is sponsored by Maverick Makers Content Creation Collective. We fuel your content pipeline through video, photography, design, and editorial. Let's connect to your audiences and make more sales. Learn more at maverickmakersco.com.